Okay, Leigh, welcome to Sound Bites on the Sofa.
Fantastic.
Your first session.
Yeah, look forward to it.
Now, our audience probably doesn't know that you're a certified advisory board chair. Yep. Okay. And so you've got a wealth of experience in that space. Please.
Well, I've been in business for more years than I care to remember at the moment, probably pushing about 30. I've run my own businesses, I've run startups, I've worked for large corporations, I've worked for small corporations, I've worked for not-for-profits, I've worked for charities, and at the moment I'm working independently with a portfolio of clients and bringing that expertise and experience, I guess, mostly into their situations to help them with various problems, various situations, and get them through situations that they're finding difficult. Most of the clients I talk with have been through a kind of journey of acquiring advice in their business, because nobody knows everything. Right? Even I don't know everything. And one of the great things about business is actually not knowing everything, because then you're on a learning journey. So people will often learn initially from their family and friends when they're setting up a business. They'll talk to their accountant and a bank manager and get pretty good advice normally. As they grow, they might well turn to a mentor or a one-on-one advisor, and then they might call in specialist advice for a particular issue. Where advisory boards fit in is kind of the next stage on from that, where a business owner or a CEO might be facing a real challenge that one person cannot solve for him. It could be classically wanting to go into an export market. It could be about returning manufacturing from, say, Asia back into New Zealand, which we're seeing more and more. It could be classically about developing a new product or entering into new markets. And by definition, you might not have the expertise that you need to understand a new market. So that's where businesses should really start thinking about going down the route of looking at advisory boards and finding out more about advisory boards.
And is there a size of a business that typically has this challenge, or is it more the problem itself that you're trying to solve?
I think it's part of the growth cycle of a business. As I was mentioning, very often businesses will start out with perhaps informal advice from family, friends, and then maybe their good accountant and the bank manager, and they graduate through until as the business starts growing, or they reach a certain point where they want to push the business forward, and they find that actually they need a little bit more help than they were getting previously. Hard to say on scale. Probably not. I'd say almost certainly not your sole trader, which is great, because you can be happy as a sole trader. But if you're probably maybe about 20 staff, maybe pushing $10 million of revenue turnover in your business a year, it tends to be at that kind of scale and size that people are looking around for a bit more help. And I'd say there's no hard and fast, but it's that kind of size and scope.
And we don't want to confuse advisory boards with board of directors, because they've got different roles. So can you explain a little bit about the differences and the benefits of an advisory board as opposed to that typical board of directors structure?
Yeah, it's a good question. A board of directors is there, as the name implies, to direct the business. So the board of directors will often set strategy, make decisions. The CEO often reports to the board of directors, and that's fantastic. That's a real solid governance role. Advisory boards are totally different. Advisory boards do not make decisions, and they do not replace the role of the CEO. What they are is a resource for the CEO to really be able to go back to the board with a range of recommendations and options that the advisory board has generated for him. Okay. So say the strategy is we're going to bring manufacturing back to New Zealand. Then the advisory board might well help the CEO come back to the board of directors in 3 months' time or whatever, with a range of options of how that could happen, how that might be costed, who might actually take on that manufacturing, what it would imply for profitability, etc., etc. Like whole big, if you like, a project like that. Or the advisory board could be something that runs for about 3 years. And it's typically set up under a particular charter, so everybody's very clear about the roles. And if you'd allow, I'd like to talk a little bit about how advisory boards should actually be properly structured to be most effective.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, because your experience is as a chair, so I presume that responsibility is around helping the business create a board in the first place.
Correct. Yeah, the chair is not the expert in anything apart from listening to the CEO or business owner and understanding exactly where the problem lies or where the opportunity lies, and thinking about how best to structure an advisory board with the right talent, the right expertise, the right knowledge that's going to help the CEO check out his options and provide him with recommendations and routes to get where he wants to get to. Sometimes the chair might actually not be involved. The chair might actually decide or recommend that actually I'm not the right chair for this particular need, but we'll find somebody for you who will chair this more effectively than perhaps I would. And that comes down to the ethical structure of an advisory board, which is something as a certified advisory board chair I've been very well schooled in by the Advisory Board Centre. It's not about bringing your mates in to set something up, it's about bringing in the best people to service the need of the owner or the CEO.
And so how quickly does that process take in terms of going? So if somebody puts their hand up and says, I think I've got to go down this route and set up an advisory board, what's the process and typically how long does it take to set it up and get it functioning?
Well, as I said, that it works most effectively if there's a formal structure behind it. And to answer your big question in short form, it takes about 3 months. Okay, and that first 3 months is composed normally of about a half a day meeting between the chair and the CEO or some delegate from the senior management team in order to define the needs, put forward a proposal, define the charter for the board. There'll be some assessment of the business along the way, and to get that into place before the first advisory board meeting. And remember, you've got to find the advisors. Generally takes about 3 months.
Okay, cool. I mean, you've been involved in this process now for quite a while. What's the general uptake? Is there a good understanding of how they operate, or not so, and so therefore there's a good uptake or a not so good uptake? Give us a sort of a rundown.
Well, Advisory Board Centre, where I qualified, runs global research every year onto the uptake of advisory boards, and since 2020-21, advisory boards have grown by about 19% worldwide.
Right.
Alas, not in New Zealand.
Okay.
I've got to say our uptake of advisory boards is behind that of economies that we've referenced, Australia, UK and the US. We need to do some catching up here. It's not that there's anything working in the market that's affecting that uptake. I think it is simply just about awareness and realisation that there is another route that businesses of that sort of $10 million level can actually take in order to help them overcome problems.
Okay. And so if they want to go down that route, I mean, we talked a little bit about how long it usually takes. If we're trying to entice people, what's the cost element? So how much does it cost to actually set up? Realising that it's not a permanent thing as well. It's there to deal with a specific problem or challenge, or initiative. Or initiative. So can you give us a sort of a heads up as to from a creation and then from an operating, what sort of costs are involved in that?
I think the creation part is easier to answer because obviously whilst you're creating a board, not all boards are created equal, and they might have 2 people on, or 3 people, or 5, so it's kind of hard to say. What I can talk to is the cost of that creation, because that's largely driven by the chairman, the chair. And again, through the global survey, we have a good fix on the going rate, if you like, for shares. And we've adjusted for New Zealand. And basically over that 3-month period to define, set up and get an advisory board up and running, you're probably looking at $5,000 to $6,000, something of that kind of cost. So it's not huge by any means. And thereafter, you might be having an advisory board meeting, perhaps once a quarter, depending on the situation. Might be once a month, but mostly it's once a quarter.
Right.
So you're not looking at a vast cost. You're probably looking, typically, maybe about $15,000, $20,000 a year. That kind of level. Kind of level.
And obviously the benefits are they're tapping into experts. Whatever the process is that they're trying to initiate happens a lot smoother. So there's a lot of benefits.
There are a lot of soft benefits you go along the way, but there are also hard metrics. Part of the setup process involves creating a baseline for certain performance levels within the business. I think there's about 20 of them. And during the advisory board process, progress on those metrics can be checked. Okay, so you can actually know where you started from and a numerical improvement on a particular performance factor as the advisory board activity progresses. So it's not just about soft measurements; it's about hard delivery. Yeah.
Okay. I suppose the other side of it is, and this is where, again, we're distinguishing between a board of directors and an advisory board, is its flexibility. Can you give us some sort of parameters around what do we mean by flexibility in an advisory board?
The advisory board is there for the CEO or the owner of the business, okay, and it reports to the CEO or owner of the business. Very mindful of that as a chair. Sometimes a business might hit a rough patch, right? And it might be the best advice that the business suspends or cans its advisory board activity. Okay, in fact, that's something that's in our ethical charter. If a business is having cash flow, for example, we would immediately suspend the advisory board process because it's not the most important thing happening in the business. So there's that total flexibility there. Projects can change and shift, and then the advisory boards might need to change and shift along with the developing changes in the market or the situation. It's harder to do that with the board of directors because board of directors are there to represent the shareholders. But kind of that's a bit of an abstruse comparison really, because the two have completely different roles. Board of directors are about setting strategy and giving direction. Advisory board is about finding options and making recommendations. Doesn't make any decisions and it reports to the CEO. So two are very separate beasts, but if they're working well, they're very
effective.
Very effective together.
Yeah, definitely. Okay. I suppose if somebody is going to make a decision around, hey, look, I think I need to look into an advisory board as an option going forward, how do they contact us, CopperFox, yourself specifically, as a chair?
I'm happy to take a phone call from anybody. So I'm on 021 538 556. My name is Leigh. Give me a call. I'm happy to have a chat. Might be worthwhile going to the Advisory Board Centre website, which is advisoryboardcentre.com. All one word, advisoryboardcentre.com. Or talk to you guys at CopperFox through the website. All those routes work.
Yeah, and from our perspective, on our homepage we've got a book a meeting button.
Right.
So if they go down that, it's a free option.
Yeah.
At least at that point we can explore with them whether or not this is the best route for them.
Yeah, fantastic.